Hi, this is Jerry Wilson, and I thought I'd give you a tour of my railroad. This is in the middle of the COVID-19, I hope it's the middle of it, April 4th, year 2020. So at any rate, without much ado, I am getting some model training done, so I'm going to come around here and grab the camera. And this is my Sn3 railroad. It's in an office space in my house. It's about 12 by 12 with a 45-degree cut on the door. And this is Sn3. And what's really interesting about Sn3 is that the locomotives are DCC added, which is no big deal now. I mean, everybody's got that going. But what's really interesting is that they're battery driven, and all of that stuff is in the tender. You have a receiver, you have the DCC chip, and then you have a battery charger. So with any type of 12 volts on the track, this engine will run on anybody's railroad, whether it's DC powered, as long as they have 12 volts on there to charge the batteries all the time, or a DCC layout, Sn3. So this is really marvelous. So if you have an HO layout and you have S cab in it, you can run on anybody's DCC layout, or your own, or any DC layout. So that's my Colorado and Southern, just painted, got all the equipment in it, and it's working, hopefully. And so anyway, I guess we could start this off with, it's not holding my charge here anyway, and these are the fancy S cab, not real fancy, are they? But what I like about it is those little turny knobs things drive me nuts, because you can turn them forever and you never know when you're actually off. Whereas this one, it's got a slider on it for your speed, and then of course your standard set of buttons. But anyway, enough about that. So this is Sn3 S cab powered DCC sound, and this is the yard area that I put in to hold all my cars. And you'll probably notice as we go around the railroad that there are very few freight cars. I'm a passenger car nut, and the bigger layouts that I've had, passenger cars would have been really fun. I could have had lots of them going, but on this railroad I would guess I could probably stack them all end to end and they would go around the entire room. So this is my wall of shame, all the stuff I don't need. Another passenger car up there, and working on getting my yellow set of passenger cars going. This is the Banta block, and was a kit made by Bill Banta, laser kit, only these were plaster fronts. And I liked them so well, and I was modeling the Gilpin tram at the time. So I historically researched with some help to find out what the backs of all of these buildings look like. So the fronts that Bill Banta had are these, and the backs are mine. They're all scratch built. This building, however, I call it building number 7 because that one's totally scratch built with a laser. All those bricks and everything on the thing are done with a laser. And of course, interior, I think we've got lights in it. Hopefully my whole railroad will be lit. The road is even, is sand all the way across, which will eventually be dirt. And my train is set in the era of the turn of the century. And so I don't have very many automobiles, if any, on the thing. But I do have a lot of wagons made by GME, designed by me, and GME manufactures them and sells them. So And I do have a video on YouTube of a long road of wagons going up and over a mountain. Houses that are built, scratch built for the, I think they're actually Western Wildwood or something like that, house kits. And church up on the little mound there, the driveway coming down. This is part of the railroad is lumbering and part of it is mining. So this is the lumbering part of it. I've just seen this in the last few days because obviously being shut in, I need something to do, and I have a tendency to try to hide from my family that lives with me because they expect more out of me than I'm willing to give at the moment. It's been 7 years. So anyway, on this part, you hand load, you back the train up, and you grab a bunch of logs. These are just sticks that I cut out of my backyard. They are really good. Oh, I love them. They look really good. And then part of the hands-on of my railroad, which I really like a lot, is being able to go in and load the log cars one at a time, and little Heisler there to back it up, and eventually this will end up on the other side of the room. What I've also done, speaking of hands-on, is I have all flip switches, and you can buy them from PBL or anybody really. You know the old things that had a spring in them that would snap either way? Well, right here is a magnet on each side of this, and so since I'm doing turn of the century, I really wanted to get away from pushing buttons. I wanted a hands-on railroad where you actually had to drive the locomotive and you had to figure out which way the switches were going to go and all that kind of stuff. So there's the magnet that pulls it that way and keeps it, and then the magnet over here. All of my switches are like this, or they're just spring-loaded snaps back and forth. Backing up and going across the trestle here. Now we're getting into the mining part of the railroad. This is the trestle's on the back side of the room, and we just looked at the right side and the back lumbering area, and now we're going to go into looking at the mining area. You have the mining houses over here. Then eventually, you know, they catch a ride on the logging train or the mining train and go to work. Little scratch built design taken off of the Burnside mill, and actually it's probably the Burnside mill kit with a whole lot cut off of it. That's about half of the kit. Up on top of the trestle is Sn2 with Gilpin tram ore cars and a little bitty vertical boiler to pull them in and out of the mill. Backing off here is the Whiteside mill from the Blackhawk area, and it's a little bit modified here and there. It needs to be finished. The windows obviously need to be put in. And sticking with the Gilpin feel of it, these are actually, this is an Sn3 commercially made shay, and these are ON2 Grant Line ore cars, which are still available even though Grant Line is closed, and they're actually open with another group doing it. Okay, a little station here in the station master's house. Beautiful K27. And we have the El Dorado mine, as it was called in a magazine article not too long ago. And actually this looks like what was taken off of a Campbell's kit back in the 60s or 70s, maybe the 80s. and where you could build your own gold mine. And it was in that was the title of the article. So I needed something that the ore dump came out of the top of the roof because it was level with the track. So it comes out, dumps in there, and then the ore cars pick up the slack. This is, I think, it's been called a lot of things. The rattlesnake mine needs to be finished with the scenery and all of that stuff. Kura and the Stanley mine over here, Maud mine, and Coeur d'Alene kit I put together. So that's pretty much the mining, except that down in here, if we look in the mine hole, I don't have the lights on, but there's the never-ending mine tunnel down there with candle lights with LEDs and stuff. It's kind of fun. Of course, you still have to paint these rocks. This is one of the kits available in Sn3, and if I turn it on, some of you have seen this before on one of my earlier videos, but there's the, get my controller out of the way here, fire in the box, and running all of the steam machinery to raise and lower the thing. So we'll go down here and push the button and see if we can get this thing to raise up. And it goes in and it dumps. I've always wondered, in books I've read about this thing, but I never figured out how it actually worked until I actually got in there and made a mechanism to run it. And last but not least, the end of the logging run is the lumber mill's house there, the yellow one. He's bought this little, that's his office. He's bought this little passenger car, and he can go tour the whole entire railroad. So anyway, comes down here, parks the train in front of the log kicker, and this is again one of the places that my lake is missing, but there'll be a slot in the lake for this thing. It actually comes and goes and kicks the logs off, and they fall into the pond, so to speak, go down below, and then when you load this bucket up, you can take it over to the other side and you can load the log cars. So that's pretty much the railroad as it is today. Lots of fun. I love model railroading. I've been in it since I was about 10 years old. So I will say goodbye, and you guys have a nice day and be safe.